All right, welcome back to the podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed our chat with Ian Eagle from CBS. He'll be getting busy real soon here with March Madness and the regional starting next week. Next up, we're going to talk to Steve Carney. Steve is a Rays insider down here in the Tampa Bay area. He also works for MLB covering spring training, and he's also the host of the UTOR podcast. Does all things Rays, Tampa Bay, and he's, like I said, very active in the baseball world that comes spring training time. We're going to talk to Steve on some not so fun news. We had a tragedy down here if you have not been or not aware, a tragedy in the Tampa Bay Rays organization over the weekend. Their longtime play-by-play announcer, Dave Wills, passed away on Sunday unexpectedly. And obviously the Rays organization, as well as the Tampa Bay community, very well versed with Dave and very attached to Dave Wills. And another guy I know knows Dave very well is Steve Carney. So welcome in, Steve. I know it's not the best news, but appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, it's not fun to talk about Dave in the past tense, because Dave was so in the moment, and having worked with him for as long as I did, it's been a rough couple of days, but I appreciate you having me.
Yep. So let's talk about Dave. Again, we want to celebrate Dave here. This is totally all about celebrating Dave. Dave was 58 years old. He passed away on Sunday morning from all reports. He had some health issues last year with the Rays and had stepped away for a couple of weeks and came back, I believe, in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And nobody had known it. And again, this was an unexpected passing. He was not in the hospital. I think he passed away at his house.
But he passed away early Sunday morning in his sleep. He had worked Saturday. The Rays had a spring training broadcast at Steinbrenner Field against the Yankees, a game that the Rays won 14-10, and I had seen Dave on the Thursday previous, so I had seen him just a couple of days earlier and talked with him, very briefly. But from what I could see, Dave looked good. He sounded good. And it was kind of a surprise, despite the fact that, yes, he missed a couple of weeks last year with a bout of tachycardia, which is an irregular heartbeat. Missed the last 2 weeks or so of the regular season, but like you mentioned, had come back, worked both playoff games, did not have an issue. Did everything that he normally does in the off season with buddy baseball and some of the other things that he liked doing charity wise in the Tampa Bay region, and then had come back and had worked the first couple of weeks of spring training without any issues. And it was just as I've said to a lot of people, it was a real gut punch when I walked into Tropicana Field on Sunday morning to find out that Dave was no longer with us, and that they had canceled the broadcast that day. They canceled the broadcast that they were going to have the next day. And it's going to be next weekend before they go back on the air from what I've been told by the organization.
Yeah. Me and a friend of, TJ Reeves, were up in Charlotte doing the Big South Conference tournament, literally 11 o'clock or so, hour and a half before tip-off. We got the news, and it was just, TJ, who knew Dave well and lived in
TJ community. Lived in the same neighborhood.
Right. Right. So he was getting blown up on his phone and all that stuff, just what was going on. Let's talk about Dave a little bit. So Dave's a Chicago guy. He'd been with the Rays since 2005, so 18 years. So he'd been here a long, long time. What's the connection that he had with the audience? What were some of the things he was able to do to really connect with the Tampa Bay Rays in the Florida audience?
Well, for the kids, Jason, they would say he kept it real. Dave was about as genuine of a guy that you could meet. And everybody that knew Dave will tell you that what you heard on the radio from Dave Wills is exactly what you got when you saw him in the supermarket or at a local watering hole or at a charity event. He was the exact same person. He was extremely gregarious, he was a larger than life individual. It started with the voice. I mean, the voice was one of these voices that, radio guys like myself and you, we all wish we had that voice.
Right.
That's a truly a gift. And I remember when I met him in 2006, and he found out that I was going to be doing some of the Rays games. This was his second year with the team, both him and Andy Freed going into their second year. And that 2006 Devil Rays team was really, really bad. But it was really bad. So Dave and Andy were the show.
Yeah.
You had to take what I like to say, you had to take chicken, you know what, and turn it into chicken salad.
Right.
Because they told a lot of stories, and they made sure that those broadcasts were entertaining despite the fact that the team was no good. So but I remember meeting Dave, and the big voice comes out, and you're going, oh my God, how can something like that exist? Like, I understand it comes out of his mouth, but like that should not happen. But then, we started asking questions about my background and, what I liked and where I had come from and what my baseball experience was. And we got to talking, and I know Andy Freed tells the story, and he told the story on my podcast, Under the Orange Roof, episode 1, by the way. We talked about Dave, and they had dinner the first night, and they didn't have to worry about creating any sort of chemistry because they immediately clicked. And I felt the same way. And I went, and I remember saying to myself, I think I'm going to have some fun working with this guy. And I did not know at that time just how right I would be, because not only did I do 06 and 07, which were bad years, but I got to do 2008 going to the World Series, 2009, 2010 winning a postseason, winning another division title and going to the postseason that year. And then when I switched away from being his producer and ended up being the Rays beat reporter and seeing him every day, I had worked with him every day for those 5 years, but I didn't see him every day because I was in the studio and those guys were out on the road. But then I started seeing him every day and working with him, and it got even more enjoyable. I could have dinner with Dave and Andy and listen to the stories. And I met so many good people because of Dave Wills. I've said on a couple of radio shows, like, if you wanted to know, the right people to know and the right places to go in Major League Baseball, all you had to do was follow Dave. He knew everybody, and he knew, okay, that's a good restaurant, that's a good bar, that place stays open late, these people are fun. I mean, if it wasn't for Dave, I would never have met Sean Clancy, who owned Foley's in New York, the big baseball bar in Manhattan across the street from the Empire State Building, which is now sadly closed because of the pandemic. But Sean moved to Tampa Bay, so I see Sean a lot now. I would never have met the Bertucci's, who owned the bar across the street from Guaranteed Rate Field in Chicago, and know those wonderful folks. I never would have met Rick Radzik, who was, at the time when I first met him, an engineer and a producer, and is now the program director of the most powerful sports radio station, arguably in the country, 98.5 The Sports Hub in Boston. There's so many people that I've met because of Dave, and those are just, 3 or 4 examples of it. But and it's because I was in Dave's orbit. We all were.
Yeah, I mean, again, we, as many baseball fans are, they fall in love with the radio broadcaster. The guy, a lot of fans love to listen to it on the radio, whether it's a couple innings here or there. The description, that's the beautiful element of, instead of watching it on TV, a lot of people still like to listen to the radio and hear the play-by-play and all the description and all that. And Dave did a great job doing that for 18 years. Have you heard anything from the Rays about kind of the plan moving forward, as far as closer to the regular season and replacing him, or what's the thought? Have you heard anything on that front?
First off, you could never replace Dave. That's for sure. And I don't think the Rays are going to try to replace Dave. Now, as for their actual broadcasts, I do know that their next broadcast is going to be on Saturday during spring training. I would assume that Neil Solondz, who has been the pregame and postgame show host since 2012, so Neil's been around for 11 years as well. Right. He's going into his 11th season, or let me do my count here.
12th,
his 12th season.
Yeah, 12.
So I would assume that Neil will be leaned on quite heavily to try and put things together. But I also know that the Rays have announced that they will do a special pregame tribute to Dave on April 22nd, which is a matchup at Tropicana Field against the Chicago White Sox, who Dave worked for prior to coming to Tampa Bay. So it's nice that they're going to do this with the White Sox in town as well, so they can be a part of it as well. But really, there's nothing that's been set in stone apart from the fact that they're going to start broadcasting again on Saturday. And I think that's good because I think Dave would want it that way. It's kind of like on Sunday night after I got done with the game, I went and had a cold beverage for Dave because I just said I think he would like it if I did that and thought of him and saluted him for everything that he's done for me, because he's done so much to help my career. And so just a little bit of a thanks, and have a pop for Dave.
Absolutely. Rest in peace, Dave. We love you. We miss you, man. And we will you will never be forgotten here in the Tampa Bay community for sure.
No, that's definitely true. Because on Sunday I was working the game as the official scorer for MLB. I got an opportunity to do that. It was the first game I ever did at Tropicana. First game I ever scored at Tropicana Field. So I had told Dave on Thursday when I saw him, I was like, hey, I got a OS on Sunday's game. And that meant I had to do the press box announcements for, hey, that's a hit. And so he goes, you better not screw it up because I will, how did he say? He said, you better not screw up because you'll hear about it from me. That's and oh my God. So of course, first inning, top of the first, I'm fine. Bottom of the first inning, the Rays inning comes to an end on a line out double play. And so it's caught by the third baseman, thrown to the second baseman to double up and end the inning. So I go into the microphone and I go, double play is 5-4. And then I looked up and I thought, was that really the third baseman? Nah, it couldn't have been the third baseman. I thought it was closer to the shortstop. And I go, correction, 6-4. And then I look back up and everybody looks at me like, what are you doing, you idiot? Obviously, I was the third baseman that caught it. And so I went down, and then so I go back to the microphone. I go, nah, I had it right the first time. 5-4 double play. Yeah. And in the press box PA. And so like everybody chuckles, and I turned around to the PR, one of the guys that works for Ray's PR, and I said, Dave, first off, Dave would have loved that. And secondly, Dave would have never have let me heard the end of it.
Lit you up. He would have lit you up post game.
He'd have warned me out. It would have been great though. But I smiled the rest of the game because of it.
That's a perfect segue. You probably thought, because the Rays are so used to shifting, that's why you probably thought it was a 6-4 double play. All right, let's get to some of the new rules that you're seeing implemented. The shift, there's some changes to the shift rules, the pitch clock, the bigger bases. Talk to me about you've been around the grapefruit or the spring training circuit a little bit. Talk to me about what you've seen, what you like, what you don't like.
Well, I think that most fans are finding out that the pitch clock is going to be a significant change to not just the game that you see on the field, but I mean, there's going to be a lot of strategy that goes into it, but it's also going to make the games a hell of a lot faster. I can tell you that Saturday game at at Steinbrenner Field between the Rays and the Yankees, talking about a game that they scored a combined 24 runs on 29 hits. And the game was 2 hours and 56 minutes long. It was under 3 hours. That game, most seasons, even in spring training, that game's 3 hours and 40 minutes long. Yeah. 2 hours and 56 minutes. The average time of a major league game right now in the spring is somewhere around 2 hours and 37 or 38 minutes long, as opposed to last year in spring training when it was like 3:04.
Right.
So, I mean, you're talking about having 25 or 26 minutes cut off just from the pitch clock and trying to get things sped up. I think it's a really good sign. You haven't seen too much of the shift issues here in the spring because teams aren't shifting. It's also why you haven't seen so much about what they call disengagements from the rubber now, where you can only throw over twice without penalty, and unless you get get the guy out, and then it becomes because if you don't, it's then a balk. You haven't seen that in the spring because guys don't really throw over during the spring. You're gonna, I think that's something that come March 30th, you might see a little bit. But as of right now, the big thing has been the pitch clock, and I think it's been a talking to some of these national baseball writers and pundits. I ran into Tim Kirkjian of ESPN a couple of days ago and asked him what he thought about it, because he was not in favor of it to start the year, and he went, you know what, I'm now a believer in it. So I'm really impressed to see how so many people have come around to it. And now comes the part where I think it's going to be the most fun, is how do teams strategize using the pitch clock? Because you're going to see a lot of pitchers, and you've seen Max Scherzer do it already in the spring, but you're going to see a lot more guys that work quickly now start to use the pitch clock in their favor to try and throw off hitters' timings.
And you saw early in spring training where the umpires ended a game basically by calling a guy out for not being in the box. It'll be interesting to see if the umpires enforce this.
That is good. That is going to be enforced from day one. Talking to the league, that is going to happen, and it's happened more than just that one time to end an inning. That, and the one you're talking about between the Red Sox and the Braves actually ended the game.
Right.
But even today, with the Rays in Clearwater against the Phillies, we saw there was another rule. There's another part of that rule when it comes to the pitch clock that most people don't realize, and that is when there's nobody on base, the pitcher stepping off the rubber does not stop the clock.
Yeah.
So Luis Patino was assessed a ball because he tried to step off the clock to try and call time. The umpires are not going to grant pitchers time with nobody on base. Mm-hmm. So he ended up having to take the ball because of it.
No doubt. No. When does the clock actually start? When the batter walks into the new batter walks into the box? Is that when the clock actually starts?
All right. So the way it works is that in between batters, it's 30 seconds.
Okay.
And that comes from when the play ends, that 30-second clock will start.
Gotcha.
So, throwing the ball around, whatever. And then in between, when there's pitches, it's when the pitcher gets the ball back on the mound
from the catcher. Yeah.
From the catcher.
Or the home plate umpire if it's a foul ball.
And it stops when the pitcher starts his movement. Gotcha. It's not when he delivers, but when he starts his movement. Now, There are some guys like Luis Garcia of the Houston Astros that used to rock the baby.
Yep.
That's not happening anymore. The umpires have said that they can't do that. It's got to be one motion to go in. And so you're not going to see guys doing what Luis Garcia did last year.
All right, last question. I'll get you out of here. I got two questions for you, actually. Any update on the Rays Stadium situation?
The stadium situation looks like it's going to be St. Petersburg. The city of St. Petersburg chose the Rays redevelopment plan combined with Hines. That's the first step. I haven't heard anything from Tampa, and it doesn't look like Tampa's going to have anything ready in time before they start getting everything together to start putting shovels in the ground. So it looks like it's going to be St. Petersburg.
And last question is, as Selection Sunday approaches, how many brackets do you do?
I do two. I do one that I'm like, okay, this is my serious
legit
bracket.
One. Yep.
My legit one. And then I try and do a kind of like a Discordian one where it's like, okay, I'm gonna have
Liberty go to the final 8.
Yeah, really. I'm gonna have to say, but last year that's how I got St. Peter's.
Yep.
So
there you go.
I had St. Peter's in the Sweet 16. I didn't have them going as far as they did, but I did put St. Peter's in the Sweet 16. Well,
great work, Steve. Keep it up. Tell everybody where they can find all your great stuff online.
I am on social media. I'm at Steve Carney, SteveCarney. You can catch me at stpete9.com. That's for all things Rays. And the Under the Orange Roof podcast, which is available anywhere you get your favorite podcast. Latest episode talking about the passing of Dave Wills.
I also want to give a shout out to Steve. Steve was our general manager quarterback for our Florida Football Insiders podcast that we did during the college football season. So I appreciate all the efforts there on that front.
Hey, 2023 season's coming quickly. I hope you're ready. I hope you can get Levitt. I hope you pay Levitt well.
We'll see. Well, hey, Steve, appreciate the great work, man. Keep it up. Enjoy spring training, and we will talk soon.
All right. Thank you, Jason.
You got it.